City. And today we are shining a light on Danny Ramos.
That's right.
Yes, I said it correctly. With Uncornered KC. And Danny and I met a couple weeks ago. And one, I was like, you guys are doing amazing work.
Thank you.
Two, I was like, who are you? And you need to be on my podcast. I was like, your story is fascinating.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And the work that you're doing in Kansas City is fascinating. And so let's just jump into it.
Okay.
Tell us about Uncornered KC.
Well, I kind of think that it may make more sense if I talk about how I came to this work first, because it's very unusual work, very unusual organization, unique in a lot of ways. But so we're a gang intervention program. And so to tell you a little bit about myself, born and raised in Kansas City. I was born in Kansas City, Missouri, moved to Kansas City, Kansas when I was relatively young, spent my life there. Basically had a normal childhood up until about 10 years old. 3 sisters, no brothers, mom and dad, like vacations, backyard, barbecues, everything. Around the time I was 10, though, 2 things happened that really changed my life, impactful in different ways. One was my dad and my mother separated. My dad ended up leaving my mom, moved in with another woman, started helping her raise her sons, which was very heartbreaking for me as the only boy. My dad, my hero, my guy, would do anything to spend time with him. And then he was gone one day, and he was helping this other lady raise these 2 boys who weren't his sons. And that wasn't lost on me, even at 10 years old. It left me with a lot of emotions that I didn't understand. Anger, resentment, bitterness, sadness, grief, and mourning of this big thing. And this
why doesn't he love me?
Right.
What's wrong with me?
And what am I supposed to do without you, man?
Right.
I got my mom and 3 sisters, and just a little insight into our home. It was pretty traditional, Mexican culture, Mexican value home and I say that meaning my dad worked, my mom took care of the children. My dad was a disciplinarian. He kind of set the goals and the visions for the family. So really, really traditional, in a sense. And education had been super important to him. I was a great student up to that point. And when he left, I kind of felt like all of my values and all of my direction and guidance left with him. And my mom was tremendously depressed at this point in her life because she probably never envisioned that she would be divorced and a single mom, raising her children. And so she got very, very depressed, started drinking super heavy. And I was kind of just so sad and so lost that I wanted to get out of there. I just didn't want to be at home anymore. My second oldest sister moved her boyfriend in the house very quickly. It just became a chaotic environment. And I didn't know how to deal with it. People tried to help me, tried to talk to me, asked me if I was okay. But the reality is I had no way of articulating what I was feeling and what I was going through, especially coming from a family who never talked about our emotions, though. We never, ever talked about what was going on inside. One of those things where, you don't tell the family's business. We deal with it in here. Don't talk to a counselor. We don't talk. I've never heard anybody talk about therapy or anything like that up to this point. And so I just said, I'm cool. I'm all right. Do you miss your dad? Yeah, I miss him, but I'm all right. I'm cool. I just want to go play with my friends. And so I jumped off the porch at that time, about 10, and basically stayed gone until it was time to come home at night. As that happened, around the same time, gangs started getting introduced into my neighborhood pretty heavy. So at the time, there were these little pockets of gangs around the city that were really just neighborhood groups of guys who maybe got in fights and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But around this time, which is the early 90s, gangs from the West Coast and from Texas and from Chicago started moving into Kansas City, which is when you saw gangs like Crips, Bloods, GDs, SDs, Sureño 13s, which I ended up becoming, came into this city and swept up all of these little neighborhood gangs. And it became a bigger thing.
Yeah.
And so basically all of us in our community started choosing which gang we were going to be with. So guys that I was friends with, guys that I grew up, went to school with my whole life, some of them became the 2 most prominent gangs in my neighborhood was SD, which comes from Chicago, and I was Sureño 13, which was C13 though in my neighborhood. And so we became enemies in this weird, crazy way. And when I met these gang members though, what really appealed to me and what really meant what really attracted me was they seemed to have all the stuff I didn't have.
Yeah.
Like I felt like I was very insecure. I had no direction. I had no purpose. I had no male role models, like no male guidance or energy in my life. And so I just saw them, and they just seemed like these like uber masculine guys. They knew what they were doing, like they knew what they were living for every day. They had this super strong bond, the attention of girls and women, and all this stuff that I wanted
Yeah.
that I did not have. And so I jumped in, head first. Uh, Gang life comes with a lot of different stuff. Started drinking a lot, started smoking a lot of weed, doing different drugs. Eventually, got my first pistol, little 25. Couldn't wait to use it. Like that's the mentality when you're young and you're in a gang. So at this point, I'm about 14 years old when I officially joined the gang. By the time I'm 16, I had been in multiple shootings, been shot at multiple times. Friends died. Uh, People have been killed on the other side. And so when I'm 16, I commit 3 drive-by shootings in one night. And in the commission of one of them, killed somebody. So I'm 16 years old, in jail, knowing now like that somebody passed away. And here I am again, still a young kid trying to figure out how to deal with this super heavy stuff. Like I had been in a lot of stuff, but I had never been directly connected with somebody losing their life. And so that was a hard thing to process. If I'm be honest with you, it was hard for me to even wrap my mind around what that meant at 16 years old. And there's this crazy moment I always like to tell people about because there's a reason I remember it. 30 plus years later. It's because, well, about 30. It's because it just stands out. Like I remember sitting in the police station. I didn't know what happened at this time, and this police officer came and put his hand on my shoulder like in a very kind way, like in a very compassionate way, and just asked me, "Do you know what happened?" And I told him, like, not really. And he said, "Man, somebody lost their life. Like, this is a serious deal, and I want you to know that." And all these years later, like, it means so much to me because I realized in that moment he was trying to be compassionate to me
Trying to help you.
and trying to help me in
Yeah.
some way of just man, he felt for me. Like I felt that in the moment. Still wasn't able to deal with that. So eventually, uh, go to trial. I get convicted of first degree felony murder, criminal possession of a firearm, criminal discharge of a firearm, and I'm sentenced to 15 years to life plus 6 years. So I was 17 at the time. When a 17-year-old receives a sentence of 15 years to life plus 6 years, I've only been alive 17 years. I don't even know like what that means. So in my mind, it means I'm never going to go home. Like this is it. Your life, the rest of your life, you'll be in prison, or maybe you'll get out as some old man uh, when your life is basically over. But I didn't know what to do, so I get to prison, and it's the same thing. Like you can be a gang member in the community, you can be a gang member in prison. I get to prison, even more infatuated, even more disillusioned with these ideas of gang life because these are older guys now, way more structured, like way more wisdom, way more like intelligent and strategic. Which I realize, like now, this thing about myself that I've always had this like deep down drive to impact my community and to impact the people around me. I didn't want to be just a guy who was just swept up in the flow. I wanted to be somebody who could impact the people and the things around me. And so when I saw that, that was another like key point of me committing to this gang life. This was an opportunity. And in my mind, the only opportunity that I was ever going to have to be anybody. And so I just committed to this gang culture and this gang lifestyle, and I became the best gang member I could be. And so this was basically violence. Uh, I would get put in solitary confinement. I'd get released. More violence, back into solitary confinement as a young man. But at 18, the first time I went to long-term solitary confinement, and I ended up spending 2 years down there. So I had my 19th and 20th birthday in solitary confinement, which probably the most depressing time in my entire life. First time I'd ever had to be by myself in a room. I mean, you get out 5 hours a week. The rest of the time you're locked in that cell. So it's the first time I had been by myself, the first time I had ever experienced that type of isolation with just my thoughts and my feelings. And it was terrifying for me. Like really was to have to face the fact that Now I'm by myself. I can't distract myself with drugs. I can't distract myself with alcohol, with my friends, and with all this other stuff that we distract ourselves with. I had to face the fact that, man, like, this is where you're at. Thankfully, my mom, who I talked about earlier, was like in a deep state of depression. She is an extreme alcoholic at that time. When I got arrested, she had this encounter with God that ended up being like life changing for her. Like she said, I just remember sitting in your sister's apartment, drinking, smoking, crying, and I'm just praying to God to help my son because I know there's nothing I can do and I don't know what to do. And I just heard him say, like, I need you to move. She said, I got up. It's emotional for me because the transformation that my mom takes. So she pours out all of her alcohol. She crumbles up her cigarettes and throws them in the trash, and she never drinks and smokes again a day in her life. So when you fast forward to like these years later, like my mom's in church every week. She's serving like in the children's ministry. She's driving all the way wherever I'm at and whatever prison I'm at to see me when I'm not in solitary confinement. If I call her, she answers the phone. I get a letter from her every single week. So she became this rock in my life and constantly telling me, this isn't who you are. You're more than this. Like, I know you think this is all you have, but it's not. And so in my mind, though, I didn't believe her. Like, I know who I am. I know what I'm doing. And I know it's not good. So, like, the person that my mom sees is my mom seeing her son. It's not who I really am. So I let her say what she said, but I didn't take any of that into account when I talked about, like, the direction of my life or the decisions that I was making. And so that's kind of how it played out. I ended up going to long-term solitary confinement 3 times in the next 13 years. 2 years that first time, 2.5 years that second time. And then the last time, it was 3.5 years that I was in solitary confinement. And during this period is when like something super impactful happened to me that would change the trajectory of my life. I remember being in solitary confinement, like doing what I always do. Like I had gotten so used to being down there, Don. And I always say that place can make you or break you. But for a guy like me who was ambitious, who loved to read, like those early years of like love and education, and so I love to read. I would just say I'm going to come out stronger, smarter, and better prepared to do what I need to do. So I would read all these books about leadership and strategy and like history and the military, and then I would do 1,000,000 push-ups and 1,000 pull-ups, and that was just my plan. Yeah. So I'm doing that, and one of my friends is down there with me, but he gets to use the phone. I don't, and he says, "Hey, I'm going to make a phone call. Do you want me to call your family and like check on them?" Which he did for me periodically. And I said, yes, that's exactly it. Just tell him I said, hi, I'm in the hole again. I don't know when I'm going to get out because I had just been involved in like a serious, like 30 of us either went to the infirmary or went to the hole, solitary confinement. I ended up being in the hole. And so he calls my house and he yells through this little vent, little hole in the wall, which is how we talk to each other and communicate. And he says, man, I called, I talked to your sister, man, I got something to tell you, but I don't want to tell you right here because I don't want to put it out on the run. I don't want everybody to hear your business. So I'm going to send you we call it a wheeler. It's a little kite that you roll up in plastic and you send it over however you can. Maybe with somebody, the custodian, the porter, or maybe on a line and you fish it in and pull it into your cell like people see on TV all the time. Yeah. And I get this kite and I open it. And the first thing I read is, I talked to your sister. She said, your mom's been diagnosed with cancer and you need to call home as soon as you can. And at this point, I was a pretty hardened guy. Like you can't hurt people over and over and over and over again without disconnecting from your emotions and like hardening your heart and seeing people as less than individual people. But this is the first time in a long time that I remember crying and I remember like praying. And I didn't even know that it was happening. Like I just remember I was on my knees crying and asking God like to help my mom. Called her. Of course, my mom was worried about me, Don. Like, Miko, I know you're scared. Don't worry about me. I feel fine. The doctors are saying this, but we'll see what happens. I'm worried about you. I don't want you to worry. Which I knew that's how she was going to approach this. And long story short, I get put back into long-term solitary confinement. The like blessing like in disguise was there's a phone in the long-term cells, which I got transferred to because you'll never get out. So you'll never be able to use the phone if it's not in there. So I was able to call my mom every day. I started talking to my mom every day, at least an hour, some days 2 hours. And we became as close as we've ever been. And I remember, like, at some point, I had this thought of, what can I do for her? Like, what can I do for my mom? And she loved Jesus, like she was a religious lady, a Christian. And so I said, I'll get one of those little daily breads that I've never read in my life, but I'll read it to her. That'll probably make her happy. Like, that was my only like motive. My only goal was just to make my mom a little happy. And so I started reading this daily bread to her every single day. And she did. She was happy. And she was just so shocked that her son, who was like living this life for the last almost 15 years now, was reading her the daily bread, and then eventually reading the scripture that goes along with the daily bread every day. And I started feeling something inside of me changing. Like, really, I did. And I remember at some point, somebody gave me this book. It's like a million questions in it. And it goes from everything like, how do you, what's your favorite color? What's your favorite food? Like, how do you think of yourself in terms of like who you are in the world? Like, what are your hopes and dreams? So from the most like easiest questions to answer to these very deep, questions that take a lot of thought and a lot of thinking. And I told my mom, I started going through this book. I said, I want to ask you all these questions, Mom. I knew she was sick. I knew it was serious. And I just wanted to know about my mom. And I remember getting to this section, Dawn. It was like, what are your hopes and your dreams? And I said, Mom, what are your hopes and your dreams? And she says, I don't have anything like that, son. I just want my children and my grandchildren to be happy and safe. And like, that's it. And I was like, well, I know that, Mom. But like, if you had a wish, like, what would be your wish? And she thought for a second. And then she said, if I had a wish, it would be for my only son to come home one day. Whew. And that was tough because, I say that to people sometimes and they think like, what a sweet thing to hear. Must have made you feel so loved. But I didn't feel like that. I felt like a tremendous amount of guilt and shame because I felt like she was wasting her wish on me. I said, Mom, you got 3 other daughters, you got grandchildren, you're dying from cancer. And don't use it on me. But, no, that was her wish. She was going to stick with it. Like, that's what she wanted more than anything. So, that stuck with me. Couldn't shake it. Day after day, I was thinking about it. And so eventually, me and my mom, we grew closer, but she grew more sick. Thanksgiving morning in 2010, my mom passed away from cancer. My family always say, like, another blessing in disguise. We'll never be alone that day. We'll always be together. But before she passed, I made her promise that I was going to put 100% towards trying to come home. And I didn't know what that meant, Don. Like, I had no idea. I'm a gang member. They won't even let me be around other prisoners. Like, I had no idea how they were going to get to the point where they were going to let me be released and be free. So I did the only thing that we can ever do when we're stuck in life. I asked for help, which is a very hard thing for guys like I used to be to do. Like, we don't ask for help. We've never been taught to ask for help. We've never been taught to be vulnerable, to tell the truth about how we feel, that we're scared. So I did, though. Mental health, praise God for mental health workers around the world because they come down there and do their rounds multiple times a week to check on people. And most of the time they're told, like I used to tell them, man, get away from my door. I don't want nothing to do with you. Don't talk to me. Because in my mind, they were the police, just like everybody else. And I couldn't trust them. Like, that was the big thing. I couldn't trust them. But my desire to fulfill this promise to my mom was stronger than this fear that I had of reaching out to help. And so she started helping me. She gave me some books to read. She said, we need to start there. Like, it's more about what's in here and more about what's in here than anything we can do. And so she started pulling me out, doing one-on-ones with me. Then, like, this little program she started with 2 guys shackled up in her, like doing kind of a mini group thing. Eventually, I was able to convince them that I was serious about my change, and they let me out of the hole. And I had to go through this gang program, which is a whole other podcast on. They had this idea that if we just shove all these gang members together and tell them you'll never graduate unless you guys learn how to get along, it didn't go the way they thought that it was gonna go. Seriously, yeah. I'm glad you laughed because that's how we felt. Like, what a crazy idea this is. But eventually, I was able to get through that. You know, the best advice I ever got was from my little sister. She's like, you just pray and play defense. Don't let anybody hurt you. Yeah. But you don't do anything. I don't care how scared you get. Okay. And I took her advice though. I did. Okay. Yeah. And so I did end up getting in one fight while I was in that program, but it was self-defense. And luckily, the counselor and the instructor of these classes had like really started to believe that I was genuine. Yeah. And she went and testified for me. She said, yeah, he got in a fight, but I was right there and he didn't want to do it. And I think that he should be able to continue with his program. And they let me. Wow. Like, praise God for Miss Brown. You know what I mean? She did that for me. And so then I told my little sister, if I get out in these prisons that I've been at, these high security, maximum security prisons, there's no way I'm going to be able to make it. I've had too many friends and too many foes alike. I'll never be able to avoid all those landmines. So like my little sister, bless her heart, bugged the warden so much that he came to my cell personally while I'm in the hole and said, hey man, your sister's convinced us that you're going to genuinely try to change. Yeah. So hang tight and we're going to get you a transfer to these prisons that I had told him, which were basically the prisons nobody wanted to go to. One's by Nebraska, and then the other ones are like really strict. And so that's where I wanted to go. If gang members don't want to be there, that's where I want to be because I knew I had a lot of changes to make from this work that I had been doing with Miss Hoffman. And so they transferred me. I remember like in my mind, like I got to draw this line. I did. I told everybody, hey, look, man, this is where I'm at. 15 years in at this point. This is where I'm at. And if you guys can't get with it, then you're going to have to do what you have to do because like I love you guys, but I love my mom more. And that was kind of my first stance against like this whole life that I have been living publicly.
Is it a sign of, I hate to say it, weakness to leave a gang? Mm-hmm. And so they've got you saying it takes someone strong, it takes someone tough to stay in the gang, and then you're weak if you leave, I would assume.
Yeah, so there's always these things that you think. So one, you think, is this a coward? Mm-hmm. Can he not handle the lifestyle that we're living? I mean, he was a gang member, but why doesn't he want to be a gang member now? Is because he can't do what we do. Like he's scared to get hurt or to get in trouble. The thing that benefited me so much is that I had been in prison 15 years at this point. Yeah. And by this point, Dawn, I was probably a top 5 ranking gang member in my gang in the state of Kansas.
You had the credibility.
I had the credibility. Yeah. So all these young guys in this lower level prison, I had been in prison with their big brothers, their fathers, their uncles. So they knew who I was, and they knew that wasn't the case. Not to glorify what I did. It was terrible.
There's a ranking system, and
And in this case, it benefited me because they said basically, hey, man, we know what you're about, bro, and you put in enough work. Mm-hmm. Man, you do you, bro. Try to go home, man. Mm-hmm. And so praise God for those young dudes because they really gave me the freedom. They could have made it a lot harder for me. And they didn't. And when I went to Ellsworth, Kansas, to this prison, I found fertile ground for people who wanted to change.
Okay, Ellsworth, Kansas.
Ellsworth, Kansas.
That's where
they sent me.
That's where he started to make these changes.
For sure.
Oh, okay, so you get to Ellsworth, Kansas.
That's where I got to it. And so, like, immediately I get there, I see the parole board like a month later. And I tried to get out of it. I didn't want to get out of it. But somebody had a conversation with me, and she said, man, I think that you're heading in the right direction. And you should just tell them what's going on with you right now. So I did, and they passed me for 2 years. I said, come back and see us in 2 years. And I remember the counselor was a little disappointed. Like, she had kind of heard my story and what I had been doing. And I told her, man, 2 years seems like a phenomenal pass to me.
I was going to say, it gives you hope. Like, oh, there's some light at the end of the tunnel. Like, 2 years, I can do 2 years.
And they could have passed me for 10. Like, that's the maximum pass. Yeah. And so I just told her, like, and I told my little sister the same thing. This is going to be the most productive 2 years they've ever seen anybody have. And I think within the span of 2 years, I got something like 30 certificates and certifications in different programs. Ended up getting enrolled in college and becoming a GED tutor for other guys trying to get their diploma. A lot of the guys who were young gang members saw what I was doing and started to follow what I was doing. Yeah. And I would tell them the truth, bro. Like, I wasn't scared at that point to tell people the truth about gangs and gang life and what they were going to experience, and that there are people and things in this world that love them, truly love them unconditionally, and that they were the people, including themselves, that deserved their time and their life's like commitment. And so they started going to school with me, working out with me, going to these mental health groups with me, which was crazy because I had never seen that many gang members in places like that. So 2 years I go back and they paroled me from my life sentence. January of 2015, I get paroled from my life sentence, and I start that 6 years. But now it's no more parole board. I have an out date. It's a real date that I know I'm going to go home, March 2nd, 2020. Okay. And, you know, I do so much in that time period, and I end up getting paroled March 2nd, 2020. But during that time, like, these organizations became tremendous lights in my life. Like, I had never had people who were my mentors, who cared for me the way they did, gave me opportunities they did, and wanted to support me being released. So when I got released, I joined the board of one of those organizations, Reaching Out from Within. And I wanted to see, like, who these people were and how these organizations came about, and, like, how do they approach their work, and how do they, like, get the time and the funding to do this stuff. I wanted to learn because I knew I wanted to help people too. Yeah. And through that, one of the vice president actually of that organization, and one of the volunteers who was also a big donor, like, reached out to me and said, is transitional housing an issue that we need? And I told her it always is. People need good places to go when they come home from prison. Because if they go back to the same old thing, it's so hard for them to keep the momentum that they've built up, because everybody in their home and in their community hasn't been going through these changes. They haven't been taking these classes. And so we started another nonprofit, the Alliance for Returning Citizens, and opened up a transitional house in KCK, 5 beds. The lady, beautiful job remodeling it. We thought it was important for them to live in a beautiful space so that they had the aspirations of having their own home like this one day. And so that was my introduction into, like, the nonprofit world. I was still, like, this was all volunteer, so I was working in metal shops, running CNC lasers, which a skill I learned while I was in minimum security prison. And private industry job at Zephyr Inc. Shout out to them, great company. They give us opportunities to learn and make money before we go home. And then somebody came with this opportunity to start working for the Center for Conflict Resolution, doing like restorative justice work. They were opening a transition center in the West Bottoms. And so I started working there, and it was a big shift because I had to take, like, less money. But, like, me and my wife, I was married by this time. I skipped a lot of things, but I was married by this time. And me and my wife, I told her, if I'm ever going to do what God has me to do, I need to be brave enough to make this change. And so I did. And I started working down there at the transition center, helping these guys who were on their way to freedom, and kind of just lending some of my experience and some encouragement that I had for them. And that was my work. And through that organization, Reaching Out from Within, Sue Ellen Freed, who passed away last year, but, like, great inspiration in my life, was a mutual friend of Dr. Bernard Franklin, who had begun to do this work with Uncornered. He's the managing director of Uncornered, a career, like, in academics. He ended up going to like the Harvard Leadership Institute, and he had this project of how do I help young Black men who are killing themselves or killing each other in our communities. And that led to Uncornered, which was founded in Boston through a settlement house and then a college-bound program, but eventually became a gang intervention program. And he reached out to me at Sue Ellen's nudging and just wanted to talk to me. So we had about 6-7 conversations over 6 months, which eventually led to me meeting the co-founders, co-CEOs, Mark Culleton, Michelle Caldera, and they felt like I would be a good fit for the work they were going to start doing in Kansas City. So at this time, they barely started to plant the Kansas City like office of Uncornered. And they wanted me to manage the supports, like the resources from the community, meeting organizations like yours and finding out what needs the guys that we were working with had, and creating these unique partnerships that we need, because our guys, active gang members that we work with now, uh, the services that are presently available, they don't work for them. Like, they haven't developed the amount of trust that's needed to really engage with these services. And the services have never spent tremendous amounts of time thinking about how do we serve gang members well, because there's so few of them that are reaching out for this support. Why would they?
Yeah.
It makes perfect sense looking back now that, like, yeah, they were going where the work led them. But now we're trying to bring these guys into the work. And so we have to sit down with partners and think about, like, how can we customize some of this stuff? How can we bring other partners to the table to help us think about the best way to serve, like, active gang members who are in survival mode 24/7 out here in these streets. And that's kind of how I got to the work that I'm doing with Uncornered.
So let's start to bring some of all this together. So obviously the name of this podcast is called Helping Humankind.
Mm-hmm.
And literally the first portion of your life, you were not helping humankind.
I was not.
And I think that's what makes this particular podcast different than other ones that we've done, I would say, is because you were actually hurting humankind.
100%.
Makes me want to cry.
It is. It hurts my heart. It's taken a long time for me to forgive myself.
Well, and that's what I want. That's where I want to go with this, because for anybody, and that's what you did. You said, I'm drawing the line in the sand, and I'm going to start to do things different. And that's what I want people to take away from this today. Is anyone, all of us, have that choice to draw the line in the sand and say, I'm going to do something different. And it's about forgiveness of yourself, forgiveness of others. I mean, I'm sure you were mad at your dad, mad at your mom, probably wanted to blame everybody for how the things turned out.
For sure.
And then when your mom became what you needed, that rock, you finally started to say, I do have value. I do have worth. I don't have to take this road. I have options. And now you help other people. Is it mostly guys, I would say?
Yeah, I mean, we have a few young ladies who are catalysts. That's what we call the active gang members who work with catalysts, because we believe they're agents of change.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, the overwhelming majority, young men. Like, the average age is 26 of our guys that we work with, and by the time they meet us, they've had 11 encounters with the criminal justice system.
Yeah.
So yeah, like, it's true. Like, at some point, we can make a different decision. Like, we tell our guys that all the time, and what we say is, like, there's this beautiful image that I came across in the last year. Like, most of us have heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but I had never heard of Maslow's boat.
Okay.
And it's drawn, I mean, in like a boat where all the security needs are the actual, like, boat,
the boat,
which keeps us afloat. Like, that's what keeps us from drowning. But all of, like, the self-actualization is the sail, the love, the purpose, the value. And I love that image so much because, like, my boat was full of holes, Don. I had no skills. But the only reason I was able to make it is because my sail was full of so much purpose and love for my mom that I moved anyway. And so we always say, like, if you're going to make this huge change, like you're going to have a very strong purpose. Yeah. You're going to have a very, like, strong why, because there's going to be so many days when you feel like quitting, when you feel like making that bad decision, because it's the one you've made over and over and over again to protect yourself, to get to the next day, to keep the respect of your peers, like, to have your identity. And so that purpose is so powerful if you want to make that kind of change. And I didn't realize it at the time, but making that promise to my mom and really meaning it, it gave me purpose. Yeah. And that kept me on that path. So we talk a lot about purpose. We talk a lot about finding your why, because it's important.
So never heard of Maslow's boat.
Right.
This is fantastic. Right. I know the hierarchy, but I like the idea. And I am going to disagree with you about something real fast.
Okay.
You have tons of skills.
Oh.
And you are a natural born leader.
Thank you.
And I think that as you use those leadership skills in one direction in the first part of your life, and then you were like, I'm going to use these leadership skills now in a different direction.
For sure. No, you're right about that.
Yes. I mean, you are determined, you're confident, you're driven, you're all the things, but you just weren't putting that energy towards anything good.
No, I didn't have any way of thinking I could. Like really, I didn't think it was possible. I didn't realize that you can be that person you just described anywhere. It doesn't matter if you're in prison or if you're in this community or in high school or in the middle of a war in a desert. Wherever you are, you can be who you're meant to be. Yeah. And the people around you are going to be grateful if you find who you are and you do it.
Well, and then that's the thing, I think. And then you found these kids that are looking for that leadership. They're looking for that person to give them guidance. You became that rock. You're helping them see things differently. Part of how you and I became connected was because M.A.R.C.H, which is the sponsor of this program, does go to prisons, and we do what we would call job fairs. And we just provide a resource for the dads in prison in terms of when they get out, if they need to talk about child support, if they want to start seeing their kids again. Because part of what you've talked about before is the importance of two parents and that loss that you felt by not having a dad involved in your life. And that's, that's our vision, is how do we have two parents involved in a kid's life and making sure it's safe, making sure it's good, making sure it's all of the things, because we don't want kids to feel like a parent doesn't love them or doesn't understand. And so we are connected with the child support office, and Josh is the one who connected you and I. Yeah. And all of a sudden I get this email from Danny and he's like, hey, we use your services. We refer dads to you all the time. And I'm like, well, who are you? And this is when we Zoom for like an hour and just talked, and we just could have kept talking and talking and talking. And so tell us a little bit about Uncornered. I know you talked about a little bit, but kind of go into detail on exactly how they help, whether it's reentry, whether it's just getting them out of a situation here. Like there's lots of, is there lots of different entry points in terms of how you guys work with?
Yes and no. So I'll tell you a little. So basically, so Uncornered is a very unique organization because we're laser focused on active gang members. So we use this slide whenever we do presentations to talk about the work that I really love, because it's like a big pie. And it has like law enforcement, like education and school systems, it's, community work, all these different people that are involved in the community and serving the community. And then there's one little slice, 1%, where Uncornered fits in. And that 1% is the super active gang members in our community. 1% in almost any city that you study is responsible for upwards of 60 to 70% of the violence in that community. 1%. But this is the 1%. They're always in the back of the class. They're always in alternative schools. They're always expelled. Like the hardest guys to work with. Always like in trouble. So they've kind of been forgotten because there's so much work to do. Like we hear it all the time. We talk to teachers. Like I can't focus on the one kid. I have 20 kids in my class, which makes perfect sense. So Uncornered wants to focus on that one kid. Like that's our work, because we know that if we find the most active, most influential gang members in the city, and we tell them we believe in you, and we know that you're in survival mode and that you've been struggling and you've been forgotten about, you've been underserved, and like you feel like nobody's here for you and understands you or wants to work with you, we want to be all those things for you. And the way we even get, like, you can't meet these guys. Like, you can't put an ad out or go to a school and get them. There's no way. So the way we come about the work is we hire gang-involved individuals who maybe they're a little older, so they've had some of these changes, or maybe, like, they've had a child recently, or they have a connection with somebody that we know, and we tell them, hey, we want to hire you full-time to give us access to your network, which is the only way this will work, because they don't trust Danny. They don't trust Dom. But they trust Mario. They trust Roberto. They trust Jay Reed. Like, they trust all these guys that we work with, Nico, and all these guys that we work with, they trust. And so if they say, hey, come with me and let's have a conversation with Danny, they can get them in the building. And I'm telling you, though, they get them in the building. When we say we meet somebody at where they're at, we mean it, because like sometimes they come to the building with ski masks on and book bags, and there's not books in there like Don. But this is what it takes, which is why we specialize in what we do, because we know not everybody can do this work. but we know it's so needed. Because unless we can really solve that 1%, communities can never thrive, which is what Uncornered is after. Like, we want to uncorner Kansas City, which means if we can handle this street violence, if we can get these guys to stop killing each other and to start finding their purpose and really move past survival mode and start to understand that they can have a life, a full life where their children are in their life and they're able to provide for their children and be good role models and examples for their children about what they can expect from their life. And then we know that the community can thrive. All these other programs are going to do better. The Y is going to do better. Big Brothers Big Sisters is going to do better. Church programs are going to do better. The school system is going to do better. Because right now they're kind of held hostage by all this violence in this community. And we have tremendous amounts of violence in Kansas City, Missouri. So what our goal is, find the most influential guys, pour tons of love and support and learning, asking them to help us. We need your help, man. We can't solve this without you. We know that the people watching them will start to take cues of, hey, there's another direction I can head in. And the reason I knew this worked is because of what happened to me when I was in prison. I was one of the most active, influential guys in that system. And when I changed, guys started to come with me. I'm rolling with back then they called me Pup. I'm rolling with Pup because I trust him. I know I love him, and he's with me. But if he's gonna go to school, I'll go to school with him. And so I knew this worked. And so when I heard about this model of modeling change, modeling vulnerability to gain trust, I knew it would work. So that's kind of how we go about our work. We try to find these guys who are connected to the most active networks in the city, and we want them to become a part of our movement so that we can start to work with their guys.
So you guys are located down at Park 39.
Park 39, yeah, okay. 39th and Gillum.
39th and Gillum. You have it's a nice space down there. I love that space. Yeah. And the CCR's down there.
Yeah, they just moved in. Literacy KC's about to move in and take the entire first floor, which we're stoked about because that'll give us access to like upstairs resources. Like when we talk to a guy, well, let's just go talk to him. See what options are available. The Lyrics Institute's up on the 4th floor. They do great cognitive intervention work with the same type of guys that we work with. So it's looking like that place is becoming a hub of resources and real like boots on the ground community work, which is what we need.
I love this. And do you work with CCR to like go into schools and try to be proactive while kids are like first joining these things?
Well, we don't use that route.
Yeah.
So we believe firmly in our route of work with people you know, people you love, people you trust, so that we can get the realest information, the rawest information, the most accurate information. But we do partner with CCR for our anger management. So they at least once a quarter do an anger management rethink conflict class, which is like the first time our guys have ever sat and really been engaged in anger management and learning that anger is an emotion, bro. We all have them. It's not a negative thing.
Exactly right.
And it'll never go away. That's why we have to manage it.
Yes.
And then we learn about the different options you have in conflict. Like sometimes it is okay to be, a shark mentality if it's like a urgent need and you have to like save somebody or make it. But the majority of the time, you want to be the owl with a 360 point of view where you let other people speak their perspectives and you really come to the conflict trying to solve it for everybody, which is a restorative way of thinking about it.
I love it.
But yeah, we work with them tremendously. We want to dive deeper into that work with them. Like we always ask our partners, is there any way for us to think about how do we like dive deeper into serving gang members, which, is a very unique ask, but that's what we want to do.
So I think right now you haven't mentioned this here. It's in a conversation that you and I had, but Uncornered provides a weekly stipend.
Bi-weekly.
Okay, bi-weekly stipend.
For sure.
Because the idea is you're going to keep them off the streets. You don't want them buying, selling drugs or doing whatever they're doing to make money. You want to have them put that energy towards something good. And so
that's kind of how the stipend came about. Like our co-founders asked, these guys, like, why are you guys like not following through with your education? Like you're great when you're here, but how do we get you to extend like your commitment into this stuff that you say you want to do and that it's going to be beneficial for your life? And the guys basically said, man, like I can't just drop everything, man, and go to college. Like I got people that I'm responsible for. I got a life to live out here. And they asked them what it would take. And in Boston, they said $400 a week. And so they went and fought this battle with their board and with like these changes and said, hey, we want to try it. and they started stipending these guys, and they said immediately they doubled their outcomes. And so that the stipend became a staple of Uncornered. And so now, like, that's what we do. We stipend guys in Kansas City. It's $300 a week, but we stipend them like bi-weekly. And so it's the first time that they have, and maybe not ever, but the first time for a lot of them, and maybe in a long time, that they've had this steady income that they can count on. That it might be hard today, but if I can just wait till Friday, I know I'll have a little money coming, and I can keep moving down this path. And the other thing we wanted them to know is, like, we want to invest in you first.
Yeah.
We want to trust you first.
Yeah.
And not with any strings attached.
Yeah.
And so we that's the way we kind of build this bridge of connection with them and let them know that they're very important to what we're trying to do, like the most important part of what we're trying to do. Nobody can end this violence except them. And we want to help you find that bandwidth, so to speak, to dive into this work with us, man, and find out what's going to shift the mindset of a gang member the fastest. Because we know people are born nonviolent, like I was. Yeah. And we know that unless you die in the street, you'll probably die nonviolent. But how do we speed up whatever happens in that time period so that gang members who are active now can become like nonviolent? Our goal is 5 to 7 years, reduce violence 25% year over year until the numbers are so low that we can start like defunding and minimizing our staff and basically just do maintenance in the city. Like, we're not trying to build this organization that's here forever, because if that's the case, then we haven't done our job. So we're trying to build this organization that does this work well for 5 to 7 years, and that we create these leaders in the community where all of our active gang members now are, some of them are working at CCR. Some of them are working for Literacy KC. Some of them are working in these places where they're able to provide this unique story and subject matter expertise that's needed to really serve the kids and the young people that are living this life and stuck in this survival mode within their mind, no way out.
Danny, I just want to take a moment and just say thank you.
Oh, thank you.
For realizing and making these changes, and for making Kansas City a better place. The work that you do is amazing.
Thank you.
You get me pumped up. Like, your passion,
right.
Your passion for this.
Yeah, I'm thankful to be able to do it. Like,
is amazing.
Thank you.
I mean, I can feel it from you. It emanates, and I think our listeners can feel it too. Right. I mean, it exudes from you. Like, you have a heart. You want to make the world a better place. You want to help humankind. Sure. You want to make these changes in our community, which impacts these. It's a ripple, you know.
For sure, it is.
It goes way beyond us.
Right.
And I just want to say thank you for that.
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about the work, because it's important. And a lot of people haven't heard about the work.
And that was my I was like, what are you guys doing? Right, who is this? Right. What? You're a nationwide concept, and then you bring it here. I'm like, of course. Like, this all makes sense. If people want to get involved, what would be the best route to find you or to find the organization, and how can people help?
Well, we have a website you can look at, Uncornered US. We have an Instagram account which has tons of cool content, like the work that we do. You'll get to see a lot of the guys that we're working with. They do some cool stuff on there. So I would say that would be a great place to start. Yeah. But you could always send me an email. I don't know if you could provide a link or anything like that.
Can.
Just provide a link to my email. You can just email me directly, and I'm always interested in having conversations with people who care about our guys.
Yeah. Because is it Danny at
uncornered.org?
Uncornered. Okay.
We
Danny,
try to keep it as simple as possible.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's super simple. Danny at uncornered.org.
Right, correct.
Okay.
And that's the best way to get a hold of us, and we'd love to have people who are interested find out more about our work, and maybe come visit us. Like, we set up some of those things too sometimes.
Yeah.
But we'd love for people who feel like they have a passion for this to contact us and to get involved in some way.
I love that. And I encourage you all to at least reach out to them, see the work that they're doing, or if you have an organization that could collaborate with them on some level. I mean, that's the way we do. We kind of work with them, if you will. Like, we're going to go down and we're going to
be a part of our health fair.
Yeah,
we created this health fair. It'll be the third one. Like, we weren't sure if gang members would show up to this thing, but we have a great licensed therapist who's full-time with us, because like mental health, we believe that's where it starts.
Yeah.
Like the mental health and like understand that you have to talk about the things you've been through. And he's built so much trust with these guys. Jeff Dayton, great guy. I used to work in the school system. Now he's working with us. That they showed up and they were getting A1C screenings and vision screenings and hearing tests and blood pressure checks and all this other stuff. And like, so we have them quarterly now. And you guys are going to get a chance to come down and be a part of it.
We're part
because
of it.
we know the family. We open this health fair up. It's one of the few events that we open up beyond just our active guys and their networks. Bring your family, bring your children, bring whoever you want, because we know the family's a huge part of moving forward. And these guys really growing. If they can't grow and take their families and the people they love most with them, that's a hard ask. To just leave everybody and everything you love and be different. So we know at some point, like the family needs to get involved, which is why we're looking for more partnerships. Thank you for that plug, because we need people who are experts in this family work to get involved with our guys' families, because we're not experts in family work. We're expert in the work that we do with active gang members.
Man, just in thinking about the families, I just was touched thinking about your sister and her role in this too, in terms of advocating for you. And that's the thing, if your family is your support,
for sure,
and it's just proof and point, like how your family supported you at your lowest in the hole.
And it shows you only need one. If you have one person who believes in you and loves you and is there for you, that's enough. That's enough. It was enough for me twice. And it's enough for all of us if we have one person that can keep hope alive in us and keep us like remind us that we're not in this alone. And like now, like that's what I try to be for my family. Like I'm married now, my beautiful wife Anna, and who has a story of her own. And we have twin boys, 3.5 years old.
Stay very busy.
Stay very busy. And like, I'm trying to be that for my family. Like, I'm trying to let my family know that you have one person. If you don't have anybody else, you have your husband, you have your father, who is going to be here for you and remind you who you really are in this world. Like a human full of love, full of compassion, full of kindness, and full of limitless potential. And so I tell my sons all the time, like I started apologizing to them as soon as they started talking, because I want them to know, like, Dad's going to make mistakes, but he's willing to say sorry. And when you make mistakes, you should be willing to say you're sorry, and we can move forward together, and learn. So I'm trying to model vulnerability super early, because I feel like that's what holds a lot of young men back, not knowing that it's okay for us to be vulnerable. And that's where true strength and true trust is built, like through vulnerability. So. And connection, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, you could, it's one thing just to act like a badass or do whatever. Nobody's going to connect with you on that.
I don't even know who you really are when you act like that. How can I connect with you?
Like, I want to know what hurts you. I want to know what you like. I want to know all of the things. Then I can connect with you.
And when we sit in circle or in conversation, man, and we share like that, we realize, man, we're all
the same.
It's the same. and that makes you feel empowered. That, hey, man, like we're all going through this together. Like maybe we can help each other. And if this dude who's tougher than me, like that's my experience when I joined Reaching Out From Within. I got pulled into this group, and I seen dudes who were hardened convicts who I knew were tougher than me and had done just as much as me, like being vulnerable and open about, like, in my mind, embarrassing, like shameful things. But in their mind, like this is just my story. And I don't have to be embarrassed or ashamed to tell it. It unlocked something in me. It really did. I always say that. It's like I say, like, man, these when you start to heal, it's like getting the combination to this safe that holds all your potential and all your gifts. It's in there already, but you can't get to it because you don't have the combination to that lock. And when you start to heal and you start to meet people, it's like every momentous experience in your life, the first time you tell your story, the first time you admit and take ownership and accountability for what you did, you get another digit and another digit and another digit, and then you get to open this thing up, and all this stuff that you've been having in you forever gets to come out.
I love that part when you said there's no reason to be shameful about it. It's the story.
It's the story.
And then you say, this is what I learned from that, right? Like,
for sure.
It doesn't have to, you don't just have to carry it around as the negative thing. Then you turn into the positive, like you're doing, like, this is what I learned, and this is how I'm going to help other people with that story.
Right.
And that's, yeah, we're all connected by the stories that we tell and the lives and yeah, absolutely. So we're going to start to work towards the end of this show.
Sure.
And part of what I always like to do is what's called a shameless do-gooder shout out, if you will. And so I do want to recognize everyone in Uncornered.
Yeah, me too.
That they are all do-gooders. They're all making the world a better place down there. I also want to just go ahead and extend that to everyone in Park 39 building.
Sure.
That building is good vibes, man. Just lots of good energy.
Yep,
people doing cool. People doing cool stuff down there. It makes me
Lead to Read, Girls on the Run. Like there's so many cool organizations in there.
Yeah, that there's a whole vibe in that building, and absolutely. So just recognizing everyone in Park 39 is something I want to do. And then lastly, I want to give a recognition to M.A.R.C.H. M.A.R.C.H stands for Mediation Achieving Results for Children, and we serve the whole state of Missouri with free supervised visits, free mediation, and some free legal services for families when they have an active child support services case. So if you're curious to learn more about M.A.R.C.H, you can visit marchmediation.org or give us a call at 1-800-595-9750. And lastly, I just want to say again, thank you, Danny, for all that you're doing. I think this is the beginning of a fun collaboration for the two of us.
Me too.
And everyone just keep on doing good. Thank you.
Thank you, Dom.